What's up, YouTube? So I am going to showcase a relict deck. I'm going to try to run through this quickly because I feel like long explanations of a deck aren't necessarily as beneficial as you just going out there and figuring out all of the intricacies of certain decks yourself. That I think testing decks and playing them is your best way of learning them. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the cards in the deck and just let you go out there and play it yourself. So just to begin with the deck, we're running Dagon. I felt like he's kind of been lost in translation as of late, and I wanted to get him back into the fray. You're going to be running Fog with him, of course. I'm running 2 Foglets, so the purpose of him is basically a thinning tool and just to add some attrition damage as well. You're running Wispus Tribute. She's going to be pulling your Monster Nest and Mandrake. You're also, I have one tech choice of Lacerate. If you do happen to have Woodland Spirit and Dagon in your opening hand, then more often than not, your opponent will be row stacking, so you can find some great value out of Lacerate. Row stacking in general has happened quite a bit, even when I'm not doing or not throwing down the Fog. So there's a lot of heavy rows that I've found, and Lacerate has almost always come in clutch in every single match that I've played. So your main 2 cards that you're going to want to use with her are Mandrake or Monster's Nest, but if you do happen to have those in your opening hand or in a subsequent hand, then you have Lacerate always to use for her. One thing you could replace Lacerate with is possibly Doppler. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but so just for reference, if you feel like Lacerate doesn't fit the level of opponents that you are playing, then we're also running Woodland Spirit. Of course, he's one of the best monster cards in the entire faction, but he also happens to be a relict, so he is an auto and must include in this deck. We're also running Weavis Incantation. She is also an auto and must include in this deck. Tribute you could change out for something, but Weavis Incantation, there's no way you cannot run her in this variation of the deck. You are almost always going to be using her Ungodly Power. It boosts or not boosts, but strengthens your relics. It says wherever they are. That is a little bit misleading. It would lead you to believe that it happens in the graveyard as well, which it does not. But you're almost always going to be using Ungodly Power with her. And then Wicked Summon, sometimes you will find a situation where you will get more value out of using that option if you don't get her round 1. The main thing that I do want to explain, you have Renew. You're almost always going to want to use Renew with her so that you can get 4 points added to the strength of all of your relics. So the way that you do this round 1 to make your round 2 and 3 just ridiculous is you use a Barbagazi after you have Weavis Incantation for the first time. You use a Barbagazi to consume her, and then you renew her, and then you've at that point in 3 turns only added 10 points to the board. But the great thing about it is you almost always have Crones in your hand, and your opponent a lot of the time will pass after you have only, after 3 turns, put 10 points down. But after you've used her a second time, your Crone's play is at 32 strength. After you've used her once, it's a 26-point play. After you've renewed her, it's a 32-point play. So after your opponent passes, you usually can always win the round by dropping a Crone's play. And then that also adds some thinning to your deck because you want to get to your other power plays. Your Crones are just your round 1, basically freebie round 1 play if you do happen to have the combo. So that's the main thing I want to explain about the deck. You're, of course, playing your 3 Crones because they're relics. You're playing Morvid because he also gets boosted because he's a relic himself. He halves the power of like a strong point unit, and he has a lock attached to him, so he's, in my opinion, a must include. You've got Monster's Nest to usually pull a ghoul, but you will occasionally find a use of pulling another Barbagazi or a ghoul, or sorry, not a ghoul, well, you could. There's three potential things that you could do. So you could Barbagazi, you could Ghoul, you could Drowner, but then you also have Ancient Foglet as a different fourth option. Sometimes not too bad as well. Monster's Nest is very, very useful in this deck. Mandrake is here. A lot of the time you want to use Mandrake to boost one of your fiends so that when you Ghoul, it's a higher point fiend, sometimes 19 to 21 strength, making your Ghoul play very powerful. Barbagazi's here to not only give you that combo round one if you happen to have the cards in your hand, but also to secure some points of carryover and to help compete against the likes of Olgierd and Morkvarg. You're running 2 Foglets for thinning purposes. You've got your 3 ghouls. I will say running 2 of them might be the better way to go with 3 Barbagazis. But so far this deck has played so well that I haven't edited that part of it. Slizard is here. 1 Slizard just for extra thinning and to help secure something that you might need, such as like a Barbagazi, if your opponent decides to take one out. I was originally running 2 Slizards, but the problem I was running into is having both of them in my opening hand and then being screwed, so I put it down to 1 Slizard, and that's when I added in the Lacerate, just knowing that I had Lacerate in my other variation of this deck, which doesn't perform anywhere near as good. It was a Wild Hunt variation with Wild Hunt Hounds, but that is neither here nor there, so 1 Slizard, 1 Lacerate, and then of course 3 Reconnaissance for extra thinning. Reconnaissance has been a very good thing for monster decks because it has helped with the thinning process, which is something that the monster decks have always had issues with, and it has made this deck much more viable than it had been without the inclusion of Reconnaissance. So that's the deck. I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you think about it, and thanks for watching.
Soon, sisters. Very soon.
Do you want to tickle me?
A word once given, we never break.